Before capes and costumes broke buildings and saved the world, there was John McClane. A pair of bare feet, a white tank top, and one pissed-off New York cop. The accidental hero changed the world of action cinema with the blood, sarcasm, and grit paying off well. Over the years, there have been various sequels, and eventually, rumors of a prequel also did come up. But what if one of the perfect prequels already exists, and we aren't talking about the Frank Sinatra film? It seems that buried in a thrilling comic book arc lies a younger, rawer McLane, which deserves a place next to the various Die Hard films. So, here's a look at Die Hard Year 1, before the vents, before Yippie Ki Yay. But before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin. John McClane, the action hero that broke the mold. Before Bruce Willis crawled through the air vents of Nakatomi Tower and dropped Hans Gruber from the top floor, the action genre followed a formula. Men with ripped bodies hitting the streets straight out of the bodybuilding gym. Take Schwarzenegger in Commando, Stallone in Rambo First Blood Part 2, or Chuck Norris in Delta Force. None of these guys were mere heroes. They were superheroes, superior beings with machine guns, untouchable, overpowered, and often emotionally bulletproof. They could have formed their own version of the Avengers and saved the world from someone like Thanos by beating him to death. Enter John McClane, barefoot, sweaty, wearing a bloody undershirt, and most importantly, sarcastic. 1988's Die Hard didn't just flip the action genre on its head, it recalibrated it. Here was a hero who was just having the worst day. He bled, he cried, he panicked, he doubted himself. He even talked to himself, but through it all, he fought like hell against a bunch of terrorists. What truly worked for this character was his vulnerability. There wasn't some grand plan as he went through the terrorists one by one. It was all improvised. That's not how action heroes usually worked. They typically had a mission, a strategy, and followed it through with maybe a few twists along the way. But John McClane, he was just trying to survive, and that sometimes meant walking barefoot through broken glass while expressing every ounce of pain and anger that came with it. And every single bit of that raw, grounded humanity was what made Die Hard timeless, inspiring an entire subgenre of Die Hard sequels and imitators. The saga of Die Hard movies would last about 25 years, but none of them could match the absolute badassery of the first entry in the franchise. Every time a new installment dropped, fans would wonder, is there a chance we'll get to see his life before Nakatomi Tower? I'm sure even Detective Jake Peralta would have loved to hear that part of McClane's story, and probably use it to fuel his everyday life. Before Nakatomi, the John McClane prequel. Once Bruce Willis did Die Hard, he became a superstar. Hollywood had a whole new kind of action hero on its hands, standing shoulder to shoulder with the likes of Arnold Schwarzenegger and Sylvester Stallone. And Hollywood didn't wait. It quickly jumped on the momentum, releasing multiple sequels and eventually building an entire franchise around Die Hard. It became clear that Bruce Willis was the one irreplaceable element. No one else could match his persona, except maybe that one time when Samuel L. Jackson's Zeus teamed up with him in the third installment. The film spawned 4 sequels, each trying its best to top the last, but never quite capturing the magic of the original. Still, fans stayed loyal, as long as Bruce Willis was willing to return as John McClane. The actor himself expressed deep affection for the character, and once spoke about the mythology of Die Hard, saying, I like the sensibility of this character. I like his attitude. A good friend of mine, Jason Smilovic, who's a screenwriter, he wrote the film Lucky Number 11. He helped us out about a year ago when we first started talking about storyline elements. He started talking about the mythology of Die Hard. I'd never heard that said before, and it kind of makes sense that a film that spans 21 years and over 4 films, for me, it's kind of an interesting thing to go back and look at the first film and watch myself age over the 21 years. His lack of respect for authority, I think, is the thing that is most in line with my South Jersey sensibility. And why I was talking about the mythology of Die Hard is that there are certain things, there's certain elements that the audience expects from John McClane that happen in this film. That he loves his family, loves his country. He's not going to let anyone do harm. He's not going to let anyone hurt anybody that's innocent or can't defend themselves. But over the years, the plots became increasingly lackluster as the studio tried to squeeze every last bit of profit out of the franchise. The fifth entry, A Good Day to Die Hard, was meant to launch the next generation, with John McClane's son, Jack McLane, played by Jai Courtney, taking the helm. But the film was a mess, and it quickly became clear that the idea had flopped. Soon after, talks began about doing a prequel, a story exploring what made John McClane the hardened, wisecracking hero we met in the original film. Enter the graphic novel, Die Hard Year One. Boom Studios had made a name for themselves by adapting some of the biggest cinematic events into the graphic novel realm, with plot elements that stayed close to the movies. So it was only a matter of time before they worked on a Die Hard adaptation. In 2009, writer Howard Chaykin and artist Stephen Thompson came together to explore a rookie John McClane as he deals with an interesting set of criminals across New York, while also touching on his time in the Marines and aspects like how he developed claustrophobia. According to Chaykin, we're dealing with McClane as a 23-year-old Marine veteran, new to the force from Queens, just loving his job. The series is going to explain exactly how he got his gold shield. What we're doing is hitting the high points of the drama of the 1970s and using them as the background and springboards for the issues. The first 4-issue arc takes place on the bicentennial, the 4th of July in 1976. The great irony of the bicentennial celebration is that it was at a time when New York City was kind of a scary place, and the rest of the country really hated New York. So the irony of the 200th birthday of the United States being celebrated in a place that was regarded as a sodomite hellhole wasn't lost on anyone. It's also fun to note that the comic books touch on the noir tone of the original book, Nothing Lasts Forever by Roderick Thorpe. So for those who consider Frank Sinatra's The Detective as one of the prequels to the franchise, Die Hard Year One might just be the ride you were looking for. A deeper dive into Die Hard Year One. In 1976, on the 4th of July, we're introduced to a young John McClane as a rookie cop, partnered with a typical New York City officer, Ken Bingham. We're immediately made aware that McClane isn't happy with his current situation. Fresh back from Vietnam, stuck with an annoying partner, and assigned foot patrol on one of the most important days in America. But as we all know, wherever there's McClane, trouble isn't far behind. We're also introduced to a cast of characters across New York who will play important roles in the chaos that's about to unfold. These include everyone from Rosie Haskell, a girl who's just moved in from Manhattan, to Alan Douglas, a hippie who might be up to more than just staying healthy. As McClane roams the streets, it becomes clear why he gets headaches, dealing with public indecency cases, purse snatchers, and random flashers. No wonder the man had already been through enough crooks even before his Christmas at Nakatomi Tower. The narrative soon takes a noir turn, as we're given hints of something sinister brewing. While McClane tries to work things out with his partner, we see another pair of cops committing a crime in an alley, witnessed only by Rosie. She quickly becomes the damsel in distress when the crooked cops realize she saw them and begin to chase her. Meanwhile, Walden Ford, a wealthy New Yorker, is planning a party on his yacht. His wife, Dana, takes a keen interest in McClane, suggesting he be the cop to oversee security at the party. McClane does a lot of internal monologuing, processing events, and responding more to himself than to the people around him. When a panicked Rosie runs past him, he immediately senses something is off, hinting at his sharp instincts, even if they're not always used. Remember how he pieced together Simon Gruber's plan and unraveled it to get to the real game? All our key characters make it to the yacht party, and the crooked cops, close to giving up the chase, get lucky when Rosie also ends up on board. But the hippie, Alan Douglas, is still missing. McClane is busy fending off Dana's flirtations when he notices Rosie and decides it's time to talk to her, only for the crooked cops to suddenly pull their guns and hijack the yacht, with Ford's own men joining them. So this was the plan all along. And just like that, our Simon Gruber shows up. Alan Douglas, the mastermind, appears with a personal grudge against the rich and flamboyant Walden Ford. Unlike a typical villain, Douglas, once Ford's employee, has turned eco-terrorist, vowing revenge against Ford's capitalist ways. He plans to steal Ford's money and burn down the yacht. In McClane's words, "Yeah, right. It's about the money. Thus begins the takedown sequence, with McLane sneaking deeper into the yacht, planning a way to end the operation while keeping Rosie alive. Throughout the arc, McLane makes cowboy references, nodding to Matt Dillon, not the drugstore cowboy, and John Wayne. One of his lines, "I'm a duly sworn officer of the NYPD, and I've got a job to do," sounds like it's straight out of a Western, which he acknowledges himself. Later, during his plan, McLane makes a mistake, giving away his location via radio feedback, just as he would during his operation at Nakatomi Tower. Again, he thinks, a real cowboy wouldn't have done that. So no wonder Hans Gruber called him a cowboy. McLane clearly saw himself as one even in these early days, building toward that iconic Yippie Ki Yay, dear brother moment. Like Hans and his men, these new villains underestimate McLane, and he once again manages to outsmart them and survive. But the arc's ending is classic noir. John receives a medal for his heroism, but he hardly cares. Instead, he looks for Rosie, thinking he might have a shot with her, only to discover she's now Holden's muse. McLane smiles and mutters, "So much for making time with Rosie." While Volume 1 echoes the kind of chaos McLane is known to stumble into, Volume 2 digs deeper into his backstory, showing us a younger Detective McLane juggling two cases at once. This time, he has a better partner, Olga Cruces, and a proper suit and tie, having just become a New York City police detective. Together, they investigate a small-time thief who's taken hostages at a massage parlor out of desperation. How does McLane get in? The air vents, of course. And yes, he talks to himself the whole time. Turns out, he's had a history of crawling through tight spaces, from childhood dares involving stolen Playboy magazines to crawling through Viet Cong tunnels in Vietnam. So yeah, his claustrophobia in Die Hard? Totally justified. Just when things seem settled, a citywide blackout is triggered as cover for a major bank heist. McLane ends the hostage situation with a few punches, but now there's a bigger problem. While investigating the blackout, estate agent Holly Petrillo contacts him over the radio about criminal activity. It seems like a prank, until McLane's instincts kick in. He investigates and discovers a real threat. Unable to access the building from the front, McLane pulls a classic move, leaping from an adjacent rooftop. Yep, the recklessness is already there, forming the core of his future cop persona. He solves the case again, but this time he doesn't walk away. He approaches the estate agent, Holly Petrillo, who turns out to be none other than Holly Gennaro McLane. Yep, the very same woman he'd later grumble about from inside the Nakatomi ventilation shafts on Christmas Eve, 1988. The Return of John McClane, the film adaptation. In 2018, after a couple of really bad installments in the Die Hard franchise, Len Wiseman stated his interest in bringing back the franchise, but with a prequel entry titled Die Hard Year One. So the influence of the comics is kinda there, but there was no clarity on whether it would have been the same plot as the arc from the comics. According to Wiseman, the film would cut back and forth between the present and the past. As he stated, the core idea has not changed at all. It's still working in parallel, cutting back and forth. What we see in the 70s has ramifications on present-day Bruce. That hasn't changed at all. For sure, because he can't be the superhero. It's a delicate balance of giving you a sense of what started McClane, because McClane, when he comes into Die Hard 1, has a lot of emotional baggage. Baggage in general, more so than a lot of other action characters, in the sense that he's already divorced. He's got an incredible chip on his shoulder. He's bitter. His captain hates him, doesn't want him back in New York. What caused all that? Was he already that guy? A script was developed for this film, and fans were also looking into who could do a good job playing the young Bruce Willis, with all eyes on Joseph Gordon-Levitt, who had already played the younger version of Willis in Looper. Who can forget that dinner scene where they sit opposite each other and Joseph Gordon-Levitt completely nailed Willis and his mannerisms? Following Bruce Willis's retirement from acting due to health concerns, the project was put on hold, and there were no updates regarding it for a while. Recently, it was rumored that a prequel is still under development, and this time, Disney and its subsidiary, 20th Century, are working on a prequel to the John McTiernan original film. Marvelous verdict. There are even rumors that a TV series might be in development, and there's a lot of concern considering it could just end up adding to the list of terrible projects that have followed the original film. Plus, it's difficult to imagine anyone else taking up the role in the way Bruce Willis did, because it felt like it was just him. Every single bit of action, however over the top, felt believable with him. Some have said that it's about time McLane is laid to rest after the years of service he's done, and maybe the franchise should pivot to something new instead of continuing to stretch a series that arguably peaked with its first entry. I love the third film, Die Hard with a Vengeance, and it's probably the only sequel that retained the original's charm. Maybe it's time we stop making Die Hard films and just rewatch the originals, and continue the debate on whether it's a Christmas movie or not. And if you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Have a good one and be safe. Thanks, everyone.